Rowan had traveled on many ships before, but none of them had ever turned silent like the Driftwing. The giant transport vessel had left the outer port only a day earlier. It carried workers, merchants, families, students, and a few quiet travelers who kept to themselves. Everything had seemed normal. The soft hum of engines filled the air. The long halls were bright. The passengers walked around without fear. Rowan had been fixing a loose panel near the cargo corridor, thinking about the simple job waiting on the other side of the journey. But the calm did not last. Without warning, a huge tremor struck the ship. Metal groaned. Rows of lights flickered. The floor tilted so sharply that Rowan fell against a crate. He heard screams echo down the corridor. He grabbed a railing, but the ship shook again, harder this time, like something massive had slammed into its side. Red alarms flashed. Oxygen hissed from somewhere. Several doors sealed automatically, trapping people in different parts of the ship. Before Rowan could even understand what happened, darkness swallowed the Driftwing. Not full darkness, only the faint red glow of emergency lights remained. The engines stopped humming. The air grew still. The ship felt dead. Rowan was alone in the cargo corridor for several minutes. When he pushed himself up, coughing from the dust in the air, he called out, hoping someone would answer. He checked a few cabins nearby. Empty. He tried the comm panels. Dead. The emergency beacon was offline. He walked through the hallways slowly, listening for any sound of life. The ship felt like a giant metal ghost, drifting in endless space. The silence made him uneasy. He wondered if everyone had escaped, or if something worse had happened. After almost an hour of searching, he finally heard something soft tapping. Not loud, not frantic, just a light tap, tap, tap from a distant corridor. Rowan followed the sound carefully, wondering if a person was trapped behind a sealed door. When he reached the passenger hall, he saw a figure standing near a bulkhead. Her hand pressed gently against the metal. The figure turned around quickly. It was a young, alien girl with silver skin, long hair that looked like soft metallic strands, and glowing blue eyes that flickered with fear. Her markings, faint lines across her face and arms, glowed softly like dim lights. Her species was known as the Yulani. Quiet, gentle, and often shy. Rowan remembered seeing her only once before boarding. She had stood near a corner with her small bag, her shoulders tight, her gaze fixed on the floor. She seemed too delicate for the chaotic boarding station, almost like she didn't belong among loud travelers. Now she stared at Rowan with surprise and relief mixed in her trembling eyes. You are human," she whispered softly, her voice shaking. "I thought I was the only one left alive." "I was starting to think the same," Rowan replied. His voice was gentle so she wouldn't get startled again. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. A small cut marked her cheek, but she didn't seem badly injured. She looked more scared than anything else. Her glowing fingertips pulled away from the door, and Rowan noticed she had been trying to channel some sort of energy into the panel. "You were trying to override the lock?" he asked. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised he understood. "Yes. I tried to awaken the door. But my energy is weak. I cannot open it." "Emergency lockdown sealed everything," Rowan explained. "The ship shut down all manual overrides. Your energy can't get through without system support." Lyrian lowered her head. "Then everyone else. They cannot reach us." "It looks like it," Rowan answered softly. "I'm Rowan." She hesitated, then replied in a quiet tone. They began searching the ship together, moving through dark halls, lit only by flashing red strips along the walls. Lyrian walked carefully, almost silently, her tail brushing the floor behind her. Whenever the ship creaked, she flinched. Whenever a distant pipe hissed, she pressed closer to Rowan without realizing it. Rowan checked every emergency device he could find, mostly dead. Some were damaged. Some simply refused to turn on. The deeper they went, The more he understood what had happened, the ship's power core had triggered a safety shutdown. It was meant to prevent the entire vessel from exploding if something damaged the systems. But that also meant communications were down. The automatic distress signal was gone. Lyrian slowly pieced together the situation. Her breathing grew uneven, and her markings flickered weakly. Not until the ship fails to arrive at the destination. That will take 3 days. Rowan nodded, even though he hated saying it. Yes. 3 long days. Lyrian sat down on the floor, hugging her knees for a moment. She looked so small and scared that Rowan felt a protective instinct grow inside him. She wasn't a warrior, or a survivor, or someone used to danger. She was just a young girl, far from home, trapped in a silent ship that looked like a giant metal tomb. He knelt beside her. We'll get through this. Together. Lubbibar. Lubbibar. She looked at him like the word, together, was something strange and unexpected. Her blue eyes softened slightly. I am grateful you lived, she whispered. I do not wish to face this emptiness alone. They found a small storage chamber that still had working backup lights. Rowan helped her gather emergency blankets and rations. Lyrian examined everything with quiet curiosity, her glowing hands brushing gently across the metallic wrappers. She seemed fascinated by human emergency supplies. Once they settled on the floor, the silence of the ship felt heavier. Rowan leaned against a crate, tired. Across from him, Lyrian sat with her legs folded neatly beneath her. Her tail curled gently around her ankles. She stared at her hands for a long time before finally asking softly, Human, how do you pass long hours when there is only silence? Rowan blinked. No one had ever asked him that. Me? I don't know. I think about things. I fix whatever is broken. Sometimes I talk to someone. That makes time go faster. Lyrian looked around at the empty room. There is no one to talk to except you. Rowan smiled lightly. Then, you're stuck with me. She blinked, almost shy. Then, talk to me. That will help me. And help you too. Rowan straightened. She wasn't just scared. She was lonely. Deep, painful loneliness that came from being far from her people. In a strange situation. Ask anything, he said warmly. She hesitated, then spoke softly. Humans. Your eyes show so much emotion. When you looked at the broken hallway, your eyes changed. Why? Quote. Era. Quote. Rowan thought for a moment. Because I was worried. Worried for yourself? No, Rowan answered. Worried for you. Her markings glowed faintly, a sign of surprise. She stared at him like she wasn't used to anyone worrying about her. Rowan relaxed his shoulders and began talking. He told her small, simple things about his life where he grew up, how he learned to repair ships, how he never liked leaving people alone in dangerous places. Lyrian listened closely, absorbing every word. She seemed amazed by even the simplest human customs. When Rowan described laughter, she tilted her head and said quietly, Yulani laugh without sound. It is only shown in eyes. He laughed at that. Well, humans are loud. You'll get used to it. She didn't laugh, but her eyes brightened. That was her version. Later, when the silence returned, Lyrian pressed her glowing fingers together nervously. Rowan, in my culture, when one feels fear, we share a small piece of our energy with someone we trust. It gives warmth, comfort, only if the other accepts. Rowan hesitated. Is it safe for humans? She nodded quickly. Yes, it is gentle. You may refuse if it frightens you. He held out his hand slowly. If it helps you, I won't refuse. Lyrian touched her fingertips gently against his palm. A warm, soft pulse flowed into him. Not heat like fire, but warmth, like a blanket on a cold night. A quiet, calm filled his chest. The fear he hadn't even realized he carried slowly faded. Lyrian watched his expression carefully. "Does it hurt you?" "No. No," Rowan said. "It feels peaceful." A small, shy smile touched her lips. "Then, I succeeded." After that, she asked many questions. Why do humans smile? Why do humans touch objects so much? Why do humans talk, even when they are scared? Rowan answered everything. Rowan, object, sometimes laughing softly at her curiosity. She listened, like each answer was precious. Whenever she grew nervous, she lightly touched his hand again, letting a small pulse pass through him. Each time, her expression softened, as if his calmness helped her calm herself. Eventually, she scooted a little closer, her movements small and careful. Her hair brushed his shoulder lightly. She didn't lean on him, but she sat close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Rowan," she whispered. "Yes," he said softly. "Many long hours." She looked up at him, her eyes shy but hopeful. "May I sit closer?" Yulani do not like empty space when they are afraid. Rowan nodded gently. "Of course, you can." She settled beside him, her presence warm and soft. Her energy markings glowed faintly, reflecting her calmness. After a long silence, she whispered again. "I want to learn how humans pass time. I want to learn from you." Rowan smiled. "Then we'll teach each other. We have plenty of time." The driftwing floated quietly in the empty stars. The halls were broken. The engines were dead. But in that small storage room, two survivors sat close, no longer feeling the crushing weight of loneliness. For the first time since the disaster, the hours didn't feel so heavy. They had each other. The first hours passed slowly, but not painfully. Rowan and Lyrian stayed inside the small storage room, using the working emergency lights for comfort. The ship around them was quiet, drifting through empty space like a giant sleeping creature. Every now and then, a metal panel creaked from temperature changes. The soft echo traveled down the corridors and made Lyrian flinch. Rowan always looked toward the sound first, letting her see that nothing dangerous was there. When she relaxed, she would breathe out softly, almost like a sigh of relief. Rowan noticed every small reaction, every flicker of her markings, every twitch of her tail. She tried to hide her fear, but her body language was clear. Still, she didn't run away from him. After a while, she turned to him and said gently, "Rowan, can you tell me more human things? New things I do not know?" And he smiled. Her eyes glowed a soft blue, curious but shy. The question surprised him. He looked down at his hands. Humans. Try to keep busy. Talk to someone. Sometimes listen to music, or imagine stories, or think about home. What about your people? What do Yulani do? Lyrian lowered her gaze. We seek touch. Not romantic, not ownership, just presence. We sit close. We let our energies calm each other. That sounds nice, Rowan said. She nodded softly. It is. My people are never left alone during fear. But here, her voice shook slightly. I have no clan, only you. Rowan didn't say anything for a moment. Then he shifted slightly closer so his shoulder brushed hers. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. X. Her markings glowed brighter, flickering in soft waves that seemed almost like Yulani happiness. She didn't speak immediately. She just absorbed his presence like it was a warm light in a dark room. They decided to explore more of the ship before resting. Rowan wanted to make sure there were no injured passengers stuck behind broken doors. Lyrian followed closely. Her small steps almost silent. She stuck near his side, sometimes gripping the edge of his jacket when the halls grew too dark. The two of them searched cabins, checked storage rooms, and pushed aside fallen debris. The deeper they went, the more Rowan realized how lucky they had been. Some corridors were completely crushed by metal plates. Others were filled with thick smoke residue from a small electrical fire. A few had open cracks where the outer hull had nearly split. Once, when they passed a window, Lirien stopped walking and stared into the endless black space. The stars looked sharp and cold, scattered across the void. She pressed her hand gently against the glass and whispered, "It feels so large, and we feel so small." Rowan stood beside her. "Space is always big, but we're still alive. That means we haven't lost." She turned to him. "Do humans always think like that? When we have something worth staying alive for," Rowan said softly. Her eyes widened just a little, as if she wasn't sure what he meant. She looked away quickly, her markings glowing in a shy pattern. They continued searching until they reached a small engineering bay. Most screens were dark, but Rowan found one that still flickered faintly with backup power. He brushed dust off its surface. Lirien stepped beside him. "What does it show?" "It's a diagnostic screen," Rowan explained. "Let me check." He tapped the controls until a small, weak display appeared. It showed the ship's damage level. Several sections were listed as destroyed. Others were sealed off. Power core. Shut down. External communication. Offline. Emergency distress. Failed. Lirien's fingers curled tightly. "We are drifting." "Yes." "No engines." "Nope." "No voices." "Only us." She swallowed hard. "How do humans not go mad in such silence?" Rowan smiled softly. "We talk. We joke. We share stories. We find a way to stay human." Lirien watched him closely. "Teach me how humans do this." "All right," Rowan said. "Sit with me." They sat on the floor near the dim engineering console. Rowan thought for a moment. "Okay. Humans like telling stories about their past, childhood, family, things that made them laugh. You want to hear one?" "Term." Lirien nodded quickly, her markings pulsing softly. Rowan told her about the time he dropped a whole box of energy cells and made them roll across the repair yard like tiny glowing balls. The workers chased them for 10 minutes, slipping and tripping everywhere. Lirien's eyes sparkled with silent laughter, the Yulani kind, and Rowan found himself telling more. Stories about broken elevators, misbehaving cleaning robots, and once accidentally painting his own boots with ship sealant. Lirien listened with wide eyes. Every now and then, she placed her glowing fingers lightly on his wrist, sharing a warm pulse of energy, her silent way of showing connection. When he finally asked, "Your turn. Tell me something about your home," she hesitated. "My world is quiet," she said slowly. "Soft winds, gentle light. We grow energy crystals, and they hum under our feet. My people live in floating homes. We do not shout. We do not argue. We speak with our markings and our eyes more than our voices." "That sounds peaceful," Rowan said. She nodded faintly. "It is. But sometimes, it feels lonely. We do not touch often. Only when someone is scared. Only when someone needs comfort." She looked at him carefully. "I touched your hand 3 times today. That is more than I ever touch someone in one cycle. And that's okay," Rowan said. "You're scared. Anyone would be." Lirien hesitated, then moved closer until her shoulder rested lightly against his arm. "I feel less scared now." After several more hours of searching and small conversations, their legs felt heavy. Rowan guided her back to the storage room they had claimed earlier. He offered her a blanket. She accepted it shyly, curling it around herself. Then she sat beside him again, as if she had already decided her safe place was near him. The ship's air was getting colder. The emergency lights dimmed slowly as backup power drained. Rowan rubbed his hands together. Lyrian noticed and whispered, "Humans get cold faster than my people." "See. A little." She scooted a bit closer, not touching him directly, but close enough that he could feel her body warmth radiating gently. Rowan wasn't sure if she noticed how shy she looked every time she moved closer to him. Her glowing markings would dim, then brighten again. After a long silence, she spoke in a soft voice. "I know. I do not want to sit quietly. Quiet feels heavy." "All right," Rowan said. "Then we'll do something." She tilted her head. "What do humans do to pass time without tools? Without music? Without games?" Rowan thought. "Well, humans talk. They play simple word games. They tell stories. Sometimes they draw things." "Draw?" Lyrian repeated. "Yeah, like pictures." She looked at the dusty floor. "With our fingers?" "Sure." Her eyes brightened. She leaned forward and slowly traced a glowing line on the floor with her fingertip. The line shimmered faintly in soft blue. Rowan watched in fascination as she drew a simple shape, a floating home like she described earlier. She finished it and looked up shyly. "Is this good?" "It's beautiful," Rowan said honestly. Her markings glowed in surprise. "Humans think this is beautiful?" "Absolutely." She looked at the glowing drawing again, then traced another line, this time drawing a small shape beside the floating home. Rowan squinted. "What's that?" "A human," she said softly. Rowan laughed. "I don't look like that. I do not know how to draw humans," she admitted. "But you are near my home in this picture. That means you kept me safe." He didn't know how to answer that, so he drew something next, a small ship like the Driftwing. His drawing was terrible, crooked, and uneven. Lyrian stared at it for 3 long seconds. "This is very ugly," she said honestly. Rowan burst out laughing. Yeah, I know." She looked at him, startled by his laughter at first. Then, her eyes softened, and her markings brightened in her silent, Yulani version of laughter. They drew pictures for almost an hour, her glowing blue lines forming delicate shapes, his rough finger marks forming silly ones. Sometimes their hands brushed. Every time they touched by accident, she froze for a second, then relaxed slowly. Later, when she grew tired, her movements softened. Her voice became a whisper again. "Rowan. Will you keep talking? It helps the hours pass." "Of course." She scooted even closer, close enough that her hair brushed his arm again. Close enough that her soft warmth reached him fully. She didn't lean on him. Not yet. But she sat close in a way that showed deep trust. Rowan talked softly about stars, about strange planets he visited, about things he fixed and things he broke. Lyrian listened with half-closed eyes, her markings glowing gently. At one point, her head drooped slightly. Rowan whispered, "You can rest. It's okay." She didn't argue. She simply nodded, moved just a little closer, and rested her head lightly against his shoulder. Her voice was faint. "Your presence is warm." Rowan felt his heart soften. "Get some sleep. I'll stay awake." 7. And Wells. "Where?" She whispered something in her own language, a short, gentle sound that felt like gratitude. Within moments, she fell asleep against his shoulder, glowing softly like a small, peaceful star. The wrecked transport drifted in silence. But now, the silence was no longer empty. 2 survivors shared warmth, stories, and quiet comfort as the long hours passed. And deep inside the broken ship, something new was forming between them. Something gentle, something trusting, something neither of them had expected when the disaster began. Rowan still sat awake long after Lyrian fell asleep on his shoulder. Her breathing was soft, almost soundless. The glowing patterns on her skin dimmed and brightened gently with each slow breath. He didn't move much, afraid she would wake suddenly and feel scared again. Every now and then, he looked around the quiet storage room. The dim, emergency lights flickered, casting faint shadows that stretched across the floor. He listened to the silence, and for the first time since the disaster, he didn't feel alone. Lyrian trusted him enough to rest beside him, enough to place her head on his shoulder, as if he was a safe place. That thought warmed him more than he wanted to admit. After some time, she shifted lightly and opened her eyes. She blinked, confused for a moment, then realized she had been leaning against him. Her markings glowed in soft embarrassment. Rowan smiled. You needed it. You stayed awake? Someone had to make sure the ship didn't suddenly decide to fall apart. Her eyes widened a little, then she touched his hand gently with her glowing fingertips. You're welcome. They sat quietly for a moment. Then Lyrian's gaze shifted toward the hallway. We should explore more today. Perhaps we find something helpful. Rowan nodded. Yeah, and maybe more parts of the ship still have backup power. They packed a few ration packs and stepped into the hallway again. The ship was even colder now. Their footsteps echoed through long, empty passages. Lyrian kept close beside him as they passed broken cabins and scattered debris. It felt like walking through the ribs of a dead giant. Once, they stopped to listen. A faint vibration ran through the walls, almost like tapping. Lyrian grabbed Rowan's arm. What is that? Rowan placed his hand against the metal. The vibration came again, steady and soft. Not danger, he said. Just the ship adjusting temperature. She relaxed a little but didn't let go of his arm. They continued moving until they reached one of the emergency control rooms. The door was half jammed, but Rowan managed to push it open. Inside, several screens showed faint lights. Lyrian's eyes widened. Rowan, this place is not fully dead. No, it's not, he said, walking to the control panel. Maybe we can do something here. He started pressing commands on the flickering screen. Most options didn't work. But one caught his attention, the long-range beacon reset. The screen displayed a message in weak yellow text. System reset possible, requires secondary power source. Rowan frowned. We need extra energy. Lyrian stepped closer. Yulani energy. Can it help? Rowan looked at her hands. Maybe. Your energy is gentle, but if the system only needs a spark to restart, it could work. She hesitated. It drains me. But I will try. Rowan placed his hand on hers gently. Only if it's safe for you. It is safe. It will only make me tired, she said softly. They approached the console. Lyrian placed her glowing fingertips on a small power port. Blue sparks danced around her skin. She closed her eyes and focused. Rowan watched as the screen flickered and then brightened slightly. Her energy pulsed again, stronger, making small blue lights travel across the wires behind the panel. The ship hummed faintly for the first time since the disaster. Lyrian gasped and pulled her hand back. I tried. You did great, Rowan said quickly, steadying her as she swayed a little. The screen blinked twice, then showed a message. Signal sent, distress beacon active. Rowan grinned. They'll find us now. Lyrian looked up at him, her tired eyes brightening. Truly? Yes. Someone will receive that signal. She lowered herself to the floor slowly, exhausted. Rowan sat beside her. She leaned against him without hesitation this time. I am tired, she whispered. You used a lot of energy. Rest a little. She closed her eyes, breathing softly. Rowan kept watch until she regained strength. She didn't sleep this time, but she rested, letting her body recover. After some time, she opened her eyes again. Rowan, what will happen when we are rescued? We'll be taken to the nearest station. And then? She asked quietly. He wasn't sure why she sounded worried. Then you go to your people. and I go to mine. Her markings dimmed slightly. She didn't look at him. Rowan frowned. You don't want that? She hesitated. I do want safety. I want home. But, she looked up at him softly. These hours with you made the fear small. If we part, I will remember the silence again. Rowan gently touched her shoulder. You won't be alone again. Your people will be there. But they do not speak like you, Lyrian whispered. They do not laugh like you. They do not tell stories. And, she paused for a long time, they do not sit close. Not like I did with you. Rowan didn't know what to say. She wasn't confessing anything romantic, she was simply expressing a connection that felt rare for her species. Finally, he said softly, if you want, we can still meet after rescue. If our paths allow. Her eyes brightened. You want that? Yeah, of course. Her markings glowed in gentle waves, showing her relief. They spent the next few hours checking other parts of the ship. Now that the beacon was active, Rowan felt lighter. Lyrian stayed close, walking with renewed calmness. She wasn't gripping his sleeve anymore, but she stayed near him, sometimes walking so close their arms brushed lightly. When they reached the observation deck, the door slid open partially. Rowan pushed it the rest of the way. A large window opened into the star-filled void. Lyrian gasped softly. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Yeah, Rowan said. I've seen it before, but seeing it like this feels different. They stood side by side, looking out at the stars. Lyrian pressed a hand against the glass. My world is somewhere far, somewhere small, but the universe is so wide. And you're brave for traveling through it? She turned to him. Brave? I was scared all the time. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave, Rowan said. It means you kept going. She gave him a soft, warm look, one he hadn't seen before. Rowan, you say things that make the heart warmer. He moved slightly closer, feeling the moment settle around them. She didn't step away. Instead, she let her hair brush gently against his arm. Then the ship shook lightly, with a distant echo. Lyrian froze. Rowan listened carefully. Another soft thud echoed through the hull. He recognized that sound magnetic clamps. Rescue ship. They found us, he whispered. Lyrian's eyes widened. Truly? Yes. A tremor ran through the floor. The driftwing was being secured. A few seconds later, a voice crackled on the emergency speaker. Rescue team boarding. Any survivors? Stay where you are. Lyrian held Rowan's arm, her markings glowing bright with nervous excitement. They came because we activated the beacon. We did it together, Rowan said. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Flashlights shone across the corridor. A rescue officer spotted them. 2 survivors here. Lyrian stepped slightly behind Rowan, shy again around strangers. Rowan gave her a reassuring nod. It's okay. The rescuers guided them to a safe shuttle, waiting outside the damaged ship. As they walked, Lyrian stayed close to Rowan's side. When they reached the shuttle's light-filled cabin, she held his wrist gently. A rescuer said, We'll take both of you to the nearest star station. Medical will check you. Lyrian looked up at Rowan, her eyes soft. We will not be separated yet? Not yet, Rowan said. We ride together. She released a breath of relief. Then she whispered something only he could hear her voice. Small, warm, and full of quiet trust. These hours were frightening. But with you, they became gentle. I do not forget gentle things. Rowan met her gaze. Neither do I. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the wrecked driftwing behind. Lyrian leaned lightly against him again, not out of fear this time, but comfort. They didn't know what the future held, or where their paths might lead after the station. But for now, in the soft hum of the rescue shuttle, they shared a quiet moment of peace. two survivors who had found something unexpected between silence and stars. And as the shuttle carried them away, Lyrian whispered, "Rowan, when we reach the station, stay near me." He nodded. "I will." And she smiled softly, her markings glowing like tiny stars, no longer afraid of passing the hours alone.